Could we put the Heart Sutra up on the screens, please? Sutra, Arya Bhagavati, Prajnaparamita, Hridaya Sutra. I prostrate to the RO Triple Gem. Thus did I hear one time the Bhagavan was dwelling on massive vulture's mountain on Rajaguha, together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagavan was absorbed in the concentration on the categories of phenomena called profound perception. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva Arya Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom, and beheld those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Then through the power of Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva Arya Avalokiteshvara: how should any son of the lineage showing who wishes to practice the activity of profound perfection of wisdom said that, and the Bodhisattva Arya Avalokiteshvara said this to the Venerable Sharivariputra: Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity or the profound perfection of wisdom should look upon it like this: correctly, five aggregates also is empty of nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form, emptiness is not other than form is also not other than emptiness. And in the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness, without characteristic, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, deficient, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomena. There is no one element in sound, too, including the mind element and the mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on, up to including no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no attainment. Bodhisattvas, therefore, because there is no attainment, Bodhisattvas rely on the perfection of wisdom, the mind without 3 times also manifestly completely awakened to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment and reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the 'Is declared Shariputra, the Bodhisattva should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan was in that concentration, converted the Bodhisattva, Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage. It is like that. It is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom, just as you have indicated, even the Tathagatas rejoice. The Bhagavan, having thus spoken, the venerable Sharivariputra, the Bodhisattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, though surrounding the gods, humans, Ashuras, and Gandharvas, were overjoyed and highly praised that spoken by the Bhagavan. So I'm delighted to see you all here today, and I'm delighted to for the first time today. So we had a very wonderful lunch, and we're about to do the best of things, which is Dharma talk, and the best of things are Dharma friends. So I'm delighted that they're here, and I want to say that I actually finished their book, and I'd like people to buy their book and to read it, and I'm going to do like a book study on their book, you know. So That's all we can say at this point, but some dialogue as things go forward, because Michelle and Joel I consider family, so we can just go. Don't you? I think so. All right. This your this microphone too. All right. Deep bells, friends. What a delight to be here and have some family in the audience and some friends and students from decades ago. And for anyone who's this is a setting to be in a Buddhist center. Welcome this ancient tradition that has evolved over 2,600 years, basically based on developing the capacity to look deep into the nature of reality and see that everything and everyone, as John Muir would say, is hitched together. It was just flows of energy and information that weave together, and that through coming to that kind of deep wisdom and insight, we realize that it makes no sense to live in any other way than to be kind and to nurture harmony and balance and compassion in how we move through the world, because live in any other way creates tremendous suffering to ourselves and in the larger body of life. So the Heart Sutra chant that we just chanted is basically just saying nothing exists independently. It's all interdependent. And any time we put a label on things, we miss the point. So, a traditional meditation center here that is very expansive in the view, in the sense that there's a lot of encouragement here to engage in embodied practice, to honor and be curious about what science and the fields of human relationships and trauma and addiction and peak performance and health have to do with spiritual practice. So I really want to honor Lama Jimpa and our beloved host and friend Ellen, who really put this all together, and everybody here who's helped to bring us together in this way. It's really an honor to be with brothers and sisters. They're just trying to make the Dharma relevant in these profound times of just inconceivable suffering and cruelty and danger and fear and uncertainty. To explore a rather odd topic in the Dharma Center at one level, but to explore a project that had the total backing of every one of our beloved Dharma teachers and spiritual teachers from other traditions who we asked for advice on it. And you'll gain a deeper insight into that as we go along. So as we continue to begin, I'd invite you just to reach up and touch your heart for a moment, and just in a gesture of connecting with yourself, and to come present here, to hear what you hear, to see what you see, to feel what you feel, to know what you know, and to just listen into your own heart of what brought you here tonight. What curiosity, what need, what hope, what prayer brought you here tonight. And within this, to sense yourself within like a cell within the larger body of life that is just filled with so much incredible potential that has yet to be realized and fully awakened to. And to feel yourself embedded within this larger body of life in which there's so much ignorance giving rise to so much greed and so much hatred and so much harm and so much pain.
and so much danger. And to envision yourself as a drop within this vast ocean of being, a cell within this larger body of being, and to see what it's like to awaken within your heart a deep yearning to evolve, to awaken, to blossom, to your true nature and to your highest potentials in order to live as a force for good, a steward of peace, an embodiment of wisdom and love in these really troubled and dangerous times. And to just feel what it's like to have that deep yearning to awaken as fully as you can, to live as a force for good and be of the greatest benefit you can in the larger body of life. And then envision that you can call in, that the sincerity of your aspiration ripples out through the ocean of being, and it draws close to you all the allies, all the mentors, all the sources of strength and inspiration that you might draw upon. And just be mindful who shows up. Maybe Aunt Mary, or Grandma Bev, or the Dalai Lama, or Ellen, or whoever it may be. Just see who shows up as an ally, as a source of strength, as an embodiment of the kinds of qualities that you want to warrior up to, that you want to awaken to in yourself. And then reach out, actually physically reach out with a hand and envision that you hold their hand, hold Grandma's hand, hold Lama Jimpa's hand, hold Michelle's hand. And breathe in some of their wisdom, their love, their strength, their energy, and let your gratitude and love flow back to them. Breathe it in like waves of light, waves of nectar that fill you, and let your heart just out of natural reciprocity flow back to them saying thank you. And then imagine whoever you're reaching out to whoever they take refuge in, whoever they draw strength from, reaching out to their teachers. So as you breathe in, you're tapping into a larger stream and a lineage, and your gratitude reaches back through the primary teacher to their teachers, and upstream to their teachers, and upstream to the teachers of your teachers of your teachers. And each breath that you breathe, these streams of light and nectar and blessings and inspiration flow to you. And your gratitude reaches back to them all. Each breath in a mudra or a gesture, receiving and radiating. Dissolving the illusion that you have to do this work yourself.
All by yourself.
All by yourself. That you're dissolving the illusion that you're lacking in resources, realizing that the doors and portals to strength, to inspiration, to blessings are available to you, and you just need to reach out to them and breathe and receive and to radiate and to connect. It's not like you've ever been disconnected. You just are reconnecting, reawakening. And then imagine as you gather this strength and this light and this love, that then you can radiate this. You can extend this to your loved ones, your friends, your pets, your ailing parents. You can extend this out into the hearts of all those beings whose hearts are aching, whose bodies are hungry, or whose minds are filled with delusion and hatred and cruelty, and bathe them in the light of this awakening energy, this love, this strength. And you could even imagine a reverberation of their love and their strength and their thanks coming back to you, further fueling your heart to open more generously, more boundlessly, to shine more brightly as you receive and radiate with each breath. Yeah. So just pause for a moment if you like to touch your heart again or to sense your heart again, and to just sense yourself sitting within the center of the mandala, the sacred circle of your life, however you conceive of that. And to appreciate, the difference of feeling like you're just out there alone in the turbulent waves of the infinite ocean of samsara and diluted and kind of scary existence, and how different it is to just know that you can reach out and take refuge within this vast matrix of inspiration, however you conceive of it, just to feel the difference in how you navigate. If you're out there in your canoe without outriggers, or if you're really well stabilized and connected in these heavy seas. Yeah. So to appreciate, these are insane times. But and this is what samsara looks like. This is what the realms of deluded, this is what an unenlightened world and society looks like. I mean, people have delusions and they live by them. And to just appreciate, just how profoundly valuable it is to have access to resources and skills and community and mentors that can help us learn to navigate. So imagine, as we get deeper and deeper into us, the people who we worked with on this project having these kinds of skills to stabilize and clear their minds and open their hearts and not be reactive and afraid and badass, mean people shooting kids in food lines. Yeah. The stakes for this kind of training are really high.
Good evening, everyone. It's really special to be offering this talk here tonight and to be sharing this incredible story, because part of the specialness of that story, this story that the book is telling, is about this very full spectrum kind of training that we did with special forces, two special forces teams. And it was a very integrative mind, body, spirit kind of program. And today, meeting Lama Jinpa and hearing about what all is offered here at Lion's Roar, it's really exciting because a lot of that is already happening here. You've got, Tai Chi and yoga and recovery, you have meditation groups and mindfulness and all kinds of somatic training, as well as the more formal traditional practice. And that's exactly what we did with our Green Berets. And just to know that that's already happening right here. And this is really our first formal, the book isn't even out in bookstores yet. So this is the initiation of the sharing of this book. It will be out in a few days. It's really exciting to be opening the portal to the realm of discovery here with you all tonight. And what I'd like to invite you as we begin is to just pause again for a moment, just to consider if you had the opportunity to train two elite special forces teams who could potentially be in a position to start or stop the next world war, should there be one. What would you teach them? What would you want to teach them? What would you feel is important for them to learn? Just to kind of consider that, if this invitation had come to you as it came to us, what do you think you would want to offer as part of the training? Just take a few moments. We'll ask for a little sample. And raise your hand if anybody has a sense for what seems like it would be important to equip these soldiers with. Yes, please. Oh, I thought I saw a hand up over there. Yes, please. Yeah.
it's kind of strange, but I think about a song that.
Would you be willing to stand up so we can hear you? Great. Oh, it sounds like a mic's coming your way, but go ahead. Yeah.
Testing, because this is being recorded and your question's important.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, here we go. Okay, it's close to me.
that's
How's that
good.
good?
That's
Okay,
good.
good.
Yeah.
I think that children are going to be a vessel to bring change. And I think about, there was a Coca-Cola commercial and it was really schmaltzy. I was young and it was like, teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. And it brought not children, it brought people, artists, and I know Michael Jackson was in it because, you know, he was born same year as me. So I know everything about Michael Jackson. But the message that is potentially there with children, you know, who aren't afraid and haven't yet maybe fallen into pits and wrong thinking. And I just think we underestimate the power of children. I don't know how it's going to be, but that's my vision.
Yes, and at the end of the book, when we talk about who is this kind of training really relevant for in this day and age, youth is really, you know, our number one choice for that is to teach kids these kinds of skills as robustly as possible.
We're already designing the Jedi Warrior program.
Yeah, the Jedi Warrior program. Any other input? Yeah, over there. Yeah.
So to answer your question of
Hear me now.
You wanna just call it out and we can repeat more or less what you said.
Go ahead and call it out.
Well, I was just going to share, good thing I've got a teacher voice, huh? There was a time when I was in the military. And I was working the front gate of our installation. It was around Christmas time and it was in Germany. And an elderly man came to the front gate. So of course we had to greet him because we knew we couldn't let him on the post, right? And he had two big bags of groceries in his arms. And he didn't speak English, so he had to get an interpreter, but he said that in World War II, he was 16 years old and he was forced into the Nazi army. He didn't want to be there. And he said one of the first things that happened to him when he went into the military was he got captured by Americans. So he became a prisoner of war. And he said it was the best thing that could have happened to him, to be captured by Americans. They treated him so well that every Christmas he would bring treats, wine, cheese, beer, of course it's Germany, you know, and to thank the Americans for capturing him. And I always felt like, to me, that made me feel more patriotic than, you know, I was proud to be an American then because of the way those soldiers treated this young Nazi soldier. So that's what I would want to come out of this, to teach the soldiers, they have a job to do. Do it as compassionately as you can. That your enemy might actually be your friend.
Wow, what a great story. For people on Zoom, just to fumble about to try and summarize that, just the power of armed forces, people being kind to those that they capture or that they interact with in a way that those people are forever grateful to have met them because of their kindness. In that spirit, maybe to just loop ahead, at the end of our program, years after our program, when we interviewed the colonel who had oversaw our program, who was a real bodhisattva, a real tremendously altruistic man. Michelle asked him, Colonel Getty, what are you most proud of from all of your decades of service to your country? He said, I'm most proud of the number of covert humanitarian operations that my team was able to run that helped thousands of people and nobody ever heard about it. And that's the kind of stealth operations that we were doing and the kind of troops that we were training. It was when there were about 300 satellites in the sky.
300.
About 300 satellites in the sky. There's, thanks to Elon Musk, there's probably close to 30,000 now. But the only way to get reconnaissance out from behind enemy lines was to send soldiers in there. So we had deep recon troops that would get loaded on a plane in the middle of the night, dropped from on high to the treetops where they'd open their chutes, have to organize, and then get information out until they were found and killed. And one of the things that they needed to do was find allies, and whenever they did make contact, to know how to make friends and allies rather than kill and be killed was a higher priority for them. So as you're on the right track there. Deep work.
Hop into the story.
Yeah. So in the UNESCO Charter, it says, since wars begin in the minds of men, it's in the human mind that we have to erect the ramparts of peace. So how do we erect the ramparts of peace in the minds of men who otherwise might be really mean and nasty and pull the trigger and not know when to not pull the trigger? And, so at the beginning of towards the beginning of the program, one of our teachers, Zong Rinpoche, who's in Lama Jinpa's, who's in your lineage. Zong Rinpoche was the abbot of the largest monastic university in Tibet, really a man of, just tremendously high stature and, profoundly dear teacher. And we brought him to Seattle at one point. We had a chance to talk with him about the program and say, what do we do? We had 3 years from the time the invitation came to design the program, a lot of red tape on the contract. And Rinpoche thought for a moment, and he came back and through his translator said, teach them courage. The most important thing is to teach them courage.
And it wasn't until after, when he said that, actually, we looked at each other. How are we supposed to teach the Green Berets courage? These guys who, do all sorts of brave actions, such as what Joel described, being dropped out of airplanes and opening their chutes close to the ground, etc. But so it became kind of a koan for us. Like, what does that mean? What does that mean that Rinpoche said, teach them courage? And as we were leaving, he added, and I rely upon you for the success of this program. Like, oh boy, the stakes were really raised. But it wasn't until after I was speaking with a number of Tibetan translator friends of ours that we learned that the word that most likely Zong Rinpoche used in Tibetan was most likely Ningtop, which was translated by the translator as courage. Literally means like heart power. Could have also been translated as compassion, patience, forgiveness. And we actually got to see all of those aspects come into the inner transformation of these soldiers that we worked with, becoming more compassionate, becoming more patient and forgiving. And yeah, so I think that's good enough for now, but
Yeah.
that really follows. I was thinking of that when you were sharing, to teach them courage, teach them the courage to be compassionate to their captives and to keep to their enemies. And a lot of what our work with the men was to teach them courage to be compassionate with themselves, to recognize and befriend their own inner enemies and know how to stop the war inside themselves.
Yeah, Gandhi once said ahimsa, or non-harming, the primary precept really in any authentic spiritual practice. Ahimsa is the highest ideal. It's meant for the brave, not for the cowardly. It's meant for the brave, not for the cowardly. So, yeah, the reading.
You ready?
Yeah.
I'd like to just offer a short reading on the warrior spirit.
Maybe while you look that up, I'll just tell the Geshe Sopa story for a moment.
It's right here.
Okay, go for it.
Don't have to look too.
All right, go for it.
But I'm happy if you'd
No.
like to tell us.
Go.
So this book is really dedicated to the warrior spirit within all of us. And as you may know, actually the word bodhisattva can be also understood and translated as a spiritual warrior or an awakening warrior. So we enjoyed that our publisher went for this title, which wasn't the one we had originally suggested. But it's like, okay, that has the harmonic of bodhisattva in it. So we're really happy. So this is right towards the front, if anyone has the book, it's page 3. A deep bow to the warrior spirit within us all. The archetypal warrior spirit runs deep in our bones as a vital element of our ancestral evolutionary journey. Without this vital spark of confident, courageous, and empowering presence, we would accomplish little that is worthwhile in our lives or world. Though only some of us are called to assume the role of soldiers fighting in battles with lethal weapons, the warrior spirit awakens in each of our lives, regardless of age, gender, title, worldview, political inclinations, or stations in life, each time we step up to meet a challenge, take a stand for something we care about, or step into the role of leadership. The role of warriors in our modern world is broader than most people may think. In today's world, warriors assume not only the role of members of the military, law enforcement, and first responders who serve their communities in high-stress contexts, but also of courageous leaders and activists in many communities and organizations around the globe. These leaders embody the courage, dedication, and discipline, the willingness to step up and risk their own safety and well-being to care for others and protect the greater good. I'm going to skip a bit here, down to the bottom of page 4. When the power of the archetypal warrior spirit is immature and undisciplined, it can easily go astray, assuming a dominating stance of power over others, causing inconceivable damage, harm, and suffering, as we so widely witness in our world. Yet when the warrior spirit is matured and properly honed, disciplined, honored, and deployed by those who know how to wisely wield its potential as power with, it can be an inspiring and enduring force for protection, leadership, and service. The power of this warrior spirit may be simply expressed through a kind word, action, thought, or prayer. It may be conveyed by compassionately and courageously responding to reckless, threatening, or harmful behavior with a disarming skillfulness that dissipates, resolves, or de-escalates the tensions or aggressive latencies present in the field. while protecting those who are vulnerable. This compassionate courage may also manifest as fierce decisiveness, striking at the heart of a situation to disarm or neutralize dangerous people intent on harming others, destroying habitats, or pillaging natural resources vital to the lives and well-being of communities and future generations, even at the risk of their own lives. Without this special kind of courage, caring, and protective warrior spirit, we would not have survived the many dangers we have faced individually and collectively. As Father James, who is the father of modern psychology, William James, once mused, ancestral evolution has made us all warriors.
I was in Kansas City Airport with Geshe Sopa from Madison, Wisconsin, taught at the university there, really a beloved teacher of us. I'm not sure if you've had the chance to study with Geshe Sopa or not, but we were having this beautiful conversation. We were coming back from a gathering with First Nations tribal leaders, talking about kind of the commonalities and the differences of traditions. It was quite beautiful. And Geshe-la was saying, that he really lamented that the Tibetans weren't better prepared militarily to protect the treasures of their wisdom tradition from the invasion of the Chinese. And he really felt, we were talking about the Army Project, and he was reflecting on that. And that really touched me. Another friend was a monk named Kuno, General Kuno, who took off his robes when the Chinese invaded to lead the Tibetan army. And he was one of the most loving, compassionate people in the world, but he also just knew that there are just times when we need to be prepared to stand up to protect what is good and true and noble. And these days, we're seeing what a lack of courage is doing to our nation and our world. So where did this program come from? It's just like, how did this come to be? We get asked that all the time. Part of it was in the late 70s, Lieutenant Colonel Jim Channon, who was a friend and colleague of ours, was assigned by the U.S. Army to study the human potential movement, which meant generous visits to Esalen and some rather intensive chemical research and just exploring what was out there that might inform the development of a vision for what the U.S. Army should be in the year 2000. This is like around 1980, before and after a couple of years. And Jim codified his research and his vision for the Army in a mythical presentation called Evolutionary Tactics, a manual for the 1st Earth Battalion. And the vision there was of the military as a global peacekeeping force that would go into Gaza and Israel and just stand there and say, stop, let's feed these people and repair the water lines and rebuild and plant gardens and just stop. Where they go into places of environmental devastation and do what they could to help restore the balance and all of that. So Channon's evolutionary tactics became a strange attractor for the Delta, the Task Force Delta, to bring together leaders in the military and the industrial complex to explore what it might look like to operationalize that vision on a grand scale, both in the military and in the industrial complex. And it gave rise to this consortium of people coming together 3 or 4 times a year to do this kind of deep visioning work. And that work rolled out into what we call modern organization development and organizational transformation, the kind of innovations that were there. So that program, in many ways, and the vision of that was like the bunker buster for the conceptual paradigms to even conceive the human potential, extraordinary human potential, and with an altruistic heart and an earth-based humanitarian intent might make sense. Stir that into the pot with the research that showed that more than twice as many, maybe 4 times as many, maybe 20 times as many men and women committed suicide coming back from Southeast Asia than died in combat. There was a report called the Suicide Wall Report, and that had just dropped within the community of these explorers together. That report had just dropped. And a lot of the leaders who had been deploying troops into the field really had a lot of shame and grief with that, and a sincere aspiration for we've got to do things in a different kind of way. Stir into that pot a graduate student of mine from a Studies in Consciousness program at Antioch University named Bud Cook, big Hawaiian brother, ski instructor, peak performance, martial artist dude. He was invited to teach martial arts, Aikido, at one of the Delta Task Force meetings. He was approached by some of these leaders who shared their broken hearts and their grief and said, we've got to change the training paradigm. Could you help us with that? And he said, yeah, I can help you with that, but I know a couple of other people who could help me with that. So he comes back to Seattle. I'm working at basically Kaiser in Seattle. It was pre-Kaiser, but now it's Kaiser, running the biofeedback and stress program in the pain clinic. My admin calls me one day between patients, says, Bud Cook's on the phone. He says it's urgent. I went, oh gosh, and what's Bud got now? You know, last time he called it was, you want to train ski instructors on a sailboat in the Caribbean for a month, you know?
For the mariners.
Sure. So I pick up the phone and say, hey, Bud. And before he did a preemptive strike, I pick up the phone. And he says, hey, Wills, how would you like to design the ultimate warrior training program for the U.S. Special Forces? Bud? This is when he explains what had been going on. I said, I need to talk to Michelle about this. So I come home that night and kind of shuffled and stuttered around and said, I got a call from Bud today, and shared the vision. And at that same time, it was about the second week of August, I think, 1982, we got this call. The first Trident submarine was coming into Puget Sound with more firepower on each of the Trident submarines than thousands of Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombs. And we stopped to think for a few minutes as our minds were whirling with this, and came to the recognition that the world would be a safer place if we could spend 6 months training the crew of a Trident submarine, which was sobering thought, you know? Just to down-regulate, to get clear, to know when to follow orders and not follow orders. In the Cuban Missile Crisis, the world would have gone up in flames if one Soviet submarine captain did not follow orders, which he refused to do, and he did not turn his key so they could fire. So Kalu Rinpoche had just left Seattle the day before, and we said, let's call Kalu, you know? So we get on the phone, we get Chiki Nima, his translator, on the phone. And we said, and we explained the situation. She said, can you go ask Rinpoche if this is like really bad karma or like really a good thing to do for us? And he said, sure. And he went, he talked to Rinpoche for a few minutes. He comes back, he says, oh, Rinpoche thinks this is an incredible opportunity.
We were kind of hoping he'd say, no, no, no.
And basically, if you have the chance to work with people with tremendous amount of power who lack the wisdom and compassion to use that power wisely and for the greater good, and if there's anything you can do to just sort of nudge their hearts and minds towards more humanity, more wisdom, more kindness, do it. And literally every one of the dozens of our spiritual teachers that we asked basically the same question had basically the same answer. So we accepted the opportunity, wrote up a proposal one afternoon, sent it off. A few weeks later, get a note back from West Point logistician saying this is the most exquisite orchestration of human technology that we've ever seen. And then it took 3 years to launch it because of all the red tape and the money and all that, which meant that we had 3 years to go around and meet with our teachers and say, what would you do? Help us design this program, which was an incredible piece of research. We talked about Zong Rinpoche already. Okay. So just a couple of glimpses of those conversations. Gary Zukov, anybody know Gary's work? Dancing Wooly Masters. And he was a former Special Forces officer in Southeast Asia. And one day we were with him at a conference and he came up to us when we asked for some help on this project. And he said, you really need to know what these guys do. And he spent about 2 hours giving us the gruesome details on his experience in that realm. He said, most important thing for you is to be absolutely authentic and truthful with these guys, because they have instincts like hunting dogs. And if you're inauthentic in any way, they will sniff that out and eat you for lunch.
That was, can I hop in?
Yeah, which good advice.
That was partly because Gary knew that we both were peace activists and didn't have military backgrounds, and that we dancing on. I was out in the streets during Vietnam, very strongly demonstrating. Joel wrote his conscientious objector in high school as his high school English paper. It's okay. Yeah, I'm just holding it on. And thank you. So, Gary wanted to just make sure we didn't try to downplay our non-military experience, but just to be really real with, which we would have been anyway, but we made him a promise that we would do that.
Want to share that example what the captain asked you that time?
Yeah, we had many opportunities right off the bat to practice that. One was we were doing a biofeedback and neurofeedback training, which is a wonderful opportunity to give the men the chance not only to have their brain waves, their blood pressure, et cetera, read by a professional, but to feed that back to them so they could have the inner experience of what mind states, what somatic states, how they could communicate with their bodies and their minds in ways to produce more optimal states of mind and body. And so this was a neurofeedback training session. We were prepping them for alpha brainwave training, which is a brainwave state of relaxed calm. The men called it calm intensity. They coined that one, that they were training for calm intensity. And in order to be ready to do the training, I would kind of prep their skull, clear off any oils so we get a good signal. And it was very relaxing. I had one young captain, recent graduate from West Point, kind of just relaxed back in his chair. It's kind of like, yeah, being in the spa, having your hair massaged or something. And getting him ready, he just kind of looked up at me and he said, so Michelle, were you one of those peace activists back in the day? And I was like, oh, I took that deep breath and I went, you bet, that was me. I was out big time out in the streets. And he just visibly relaxed even more. It's just like the truth force, just being genuine and real. It's just like he just smiled and you could see layers of any tension that might have been there just really releasing. And he said, oh, that's one of the most fascinating periods of history for me. And I felt like a dinosaur. And I was like, yeah, and it just opened a field of trust, and we had many, many, many moments like that
Yeah.
that really affected. So what I wanted to say as far as that is that for us taking this program on a personal level, it was the most powerful peace work that we had actually ever done, was to meet each other as human beings, shipwrecked in samsara together, and to let go of and go beyond my stories, and they in their turn were letting go of their stories. Like one day it's like, oh, hippies ain't all that bad. Just meeting each other like human to human, another fellow human being, and kind of across cultural divides that we might have come in as.
Yeah. So we had 25 men, 6 months full time. 3 months we were in the field. 1 month we were in a silent meditation retreat. We had a lab with about $500,000 worth of neurofeedback and biofeedback equipment to teach them how to down regulate and warm their hands in cold environments and focus and kind of soften and open their hearts and we worked with their families. We worked with their kids. You know, the first night of the program, we just put them through a hellacious kind of baseline physical endurance day. And then that night they went home, took a shower, and they come back with their families, you know, with their babes in arms and their wives and their girlfriends. And the kids were playing with the biofeedback, and the wives are wondering, are you going to dose our husbands on LSD like they did in this other program? And we're saying, no, 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 we're not going to do that. And so it was just, you know, kind of a family thing as well. We had asked for and had been promised all volunteers, and we got all volunteers. So it'd be kind of like going into the Kmart in Davis or something and grabbing 25 guys out of the auto section or something and saying, you're going to do this program. And for some, it was like, oh my God, this is so great. And for others, it's like, what is this? And why am I doing this? So it was just a real challenge for us with that. But so main focus of our piece of it, I want to highlight some of the Dharma jewels of the program. You know, one is we did Aikido as a martial art, as an embodied martial art. Aikido, I is harmony, togetherness, unity, ki, spirit, energy, life force, do, the way, the path. So it's basically the way of spiritual wholeness and harmony as a martial art form. O-sensei, who founded the martial art of Aikido, wrote, the secret of Aikido is to harmonize ourselves with the movement of the universe and bring ourselves into accordance with the universe. Those who have gained the secret of Aikido have the universe in themselves and can say, I am the universe. Kind of like in this sphere of practice, divine pride, you know, that kind of egoless, powerful, loving, boundless presence, you know. So we used Aikido as a stealth way to bring in indigenous wisdom, earth-based energy, spirit teachings. We complemented and I trained with them on the mat, and then they'd come train with us in the lab and practice meditation and learn to control their blood pressure. You can imagine 25 special forces troops hooked up with thermal sensors that measure skin temperature that's related to blood flow. So when you're tense, the blood vessels are contracted and the hands are cold, and when you relax, they get warmer. They're hooked up to sensors. They're controlling race cars, and they're competing to see who can win the race by relaxing the most. That's a whole different set of moves for guys who know how to power through and use force. That's the kind of power you get from learning how to let go with intentionality, to relax with clear intent. We took them on a month-long silent encampment code name meditation retreat, designed by Rina Sarkar and Tengpulu Sayadaw, two really beloved Vipassana teachers of ours. And that was the most frightening part of the whole training for them, was the notion that they would have to sit with themselves for a month and with their own minds, their own hearts, their own hopes and fears and regrets. And it was gut-wrenching for them. For the first week, we had a mutiny, and we worked through that. And then they got into it, and there really wasn't anything else there to do but meditate and do Aikido. And so they got with the program. And about 3 weeks into it, gave a talk one night on interbeing and how everyone and everything is interrelated, and what does that mean, and where do you end and the rest of the universe begin. And at the end of that talk, and they were pretty dropped in at that point. At the end of that talk, one of the guys raised his hand and kind of stammered for words and said, well, if everyone and everything is part of the larger body of life and we're all connected, then how could we ever kill anybody? Okay, let's talk about that. Find a couple other guys and just, what does that mean? And we spent about 2 hours just unpacking that. It's really, really deep inquiry. It was sort of like the meditation retreat, the encampment was sort of like, have you ever had popcorn, you put it in, turned it on and wondered, is this stuff ever going to pop? And after about 3 weeks, it started to pop. And the guys would come for interviews with us and share their epiphanies and their insights and their tears. And it was really quite profound. And another night we taught metta, we taught loving kindness meditation. And, just opening our hearts to wish others be happy and to be well and be free from danger and illness and be safe, and to do that for ourselves, our loved ones, all beings. And at the end of meditation sessions, in the evening, there would be kind of hot chocolate and cookies. And then they'd pull their M16s out of the freezer where they were stored for the day and take them back to their hooches and their tents with them, which was kind of weird. And then they'd put them back in the freezer in the morning. And then there would be a late night sitting to see how tough of a meditator are you? Do you have the guts to come back and sit with yourself for another 45 minutes, And that night, more guys came back. It was optional. More came back than had ever come back for any of the late night sessions. And we're sitting in this lantern light in this Boy Scout camp in New Hampshire. And at that point, since it was after tea and cookies, they're sitting there with their M16s on the floor next to them in the dojo. And I look over about where you're sitting, and there's this barrel-chested, big, burly brother. He's one of the few veterans that we had in the group. He's sitting there with a Rangers Death from Above t-shirt on, skull and crossbone, Rangers Death from Above, sitting there in just beautiful meditation form, like a stone Buddha. And in the lamplight, I saw that his cheeks were just streaked with tears. And here he is just, blasting out loving kindness, metta and karuna to all beings and to himself, and probably people he had encountered in Vietnam, and kind of stepping through a portal there. It was really, quite profound for him.
Courage, patience, forgiveness, compassion.
Yeah. Towards the end of the retreat, we went out and we would hike. They were preparing to go into called the gut check, a mission simulation that no teams of special forces had ever completed. It's really grueling. So we would go out and we'd hike for 45 minutes and we'd sit for 45 minutes and we'd hike for 45 minutes and we'd sit for 45 minutes. And that was the meditation for the last 8 or 10 days of the retreat. And then gut check and then roll on. Yeah. So after the retreat, they were loaded on planes, dropped into really treacherous territory in mountains of Pennsylvania, had to cover, I think, something like 150 miles in 3 days, something just kind of insane. If they didn't make checkpoints on time with the whole team, they didn't get their food drops. Most teams either fell apart physically or started to fight with each other in the past. Both of our teams made it through.
It's the first time teams had successfully completed that. Got, Heartbreak Hill kind of gut check. And so Rami was trying to see, well, does this kind of training work? What are the benefits? Will they become weaker through this, or will they become stronger? And every test that they put them through, they got, the highest marks on.
Heart thing. We asked one of the guys at one point, he was one of the older guys, and he had a lot of injuries and all that. We said, what got you through? I mean, just that was a miraculous thing that you came through. And he said, well, it was that heart thing you taught us. It was just, I'd be, going up and there's like, damn, there's another 3 miles to go and it's steep. And I was just pumping out love and encouragement to the other guys on the team behind me. And that gave me the strength to go on. Imagine these guys sitting out on a mission with their fear, their vulnerability, their all of what might be bubbling forth, knowing how to do tonglen, how to draw in the fear, the suffering, the vulnerability within themselves, and to radiate compassion to themselves, and then to tap into the field of the energies of suffering and pain and the field of operations that they were in, and to breathe in that suffering and pain and breathe out blessings and healing and compassion to themselves and their teams and the people whose territory they were operating in, and the people who might be pointing guns at them tomorrow to maybe pull out some of the latency of the danger that was in the field. I mean, it was just profoundly deep work. We were way off the rails with this. At the end of the program, what happened? One team was recognized as the most outstanding team in the NATO games that year. Colonel Getty went on to the War College and then ran special ops in Europe. And just happened that on his watch, and he took a bunch of our guys with him that were doing undercover work in Europe, and the Berlin Wall came down while they were in place in Europe. I don't know if they had anything to do with that or not, but some of the guys were, dressed up fancy with mustaches and building resistance in Berlin during that time, and, kind of doing stealth operations there. And who knows, At the end of the program, we had reams of data, but the most meaningful data were the thank yous from the kids and the wives and the girlfriends, and their comments about just how much more humane and kind and present their guys were. We got a call one day from Port Townsend. Picked up the phone, we're in Seattle, and hey, Joe, Michelle, this is Gator. Are you surprised? And said, damn right, we're surprised. He said, I'm in Port Townsend. Can we come visit? I have my family and my kids. I'd like you to meet them. Can we come visit? And so comes over. He had been in touch with us. He had been training special ops troops in Emirates. And he'd call us now and then and say, I'm trying to remember how that meditation goes. do I have this right? You know, because I want to teach it to the guys in Emirates, you know. So he comes over with his wife and family, and we spent about 2 or 3 hours just laughing and crying. And he talked about being one of those guys who was dropped into Iraq about 3 weeks before we started the war there after 9/11, and being dug in and getting out reconnaissance, and just how terrifying that was. And then being told that the war was going to start with a nuclear blast and that he should just dig in as deep as he could so he didn't get fried, and how he was able to use some of the meditations that he had learned to just keep his wits about him and just not go nuts and do something stupid. Yeah, a lot of stories to tell, but not a lot of time. So the implications, you know, look at the world we're living in now, the kind of risks and dangers that we have, how profoundly dysregulated and out of touch so many people are with what's going on in their bodies, in their own minds, in their communities, the impacts of the decisions and the policies and the actions they take. What if we had a chance to train the guys in ICE? Yeah, to be find a little bit more humanity or a little bit more kindness. What if we had a chance to do Jedi Warrior training program for young people, junior high and high school and college, to develop really robust skills like this and the confidence to step out into a damn scary world that doesn't look like it's going to self-regulate very quick?
And the we isn't we. The we is we.
Yeah. Yes, it would be great for more people in the military to have these skills. I imagine how different what's going on in Israel would be if they train their troops in these kinds of ways. It's just so universally applicable, and I think so profoundly important in these times. So I really want to give a really deep bow to you, Lamala, for the vision that you're bringing to having a really integrated curriculum here that's grounded in the right stuff in terms of tradition and the profound teachings that are in the traditions that are offered here, but you're augmenting that by making it really culturally relevant, I think, to everyone in this community, by bringing in a lot of the more Western modalities and the more modern modalities. And you and Ellen and Andrew and others here really know how to contextualize it, I think. And it's an experiment. I know you're learning as you go. But I just want to bow really deeply that may there be many centers in our communities that find skillful ways to make any of this wisdom and this knowledge and these skills available to communities and to people on the front lines. One of our closest friends is a firefighter, a fire chief here in this community, and he actually wrote an endorsement for this book and knows how much this would mean for the people in the fire control professions. So
How do we take it all onto the spiritual path rather than have it just be in the Gompa that we do our practice, but how do we take it into our work, into our families and relationships? A lot of what's in this book is relevant way beyond being in the military. It's relevant in the military, and the story is inspiring, but really what's juicy for us is to see how will it inspire people to take this into your own lives, to make it real, to try these practices on and expand and evolve it. Just keep it evolving, just as the Dharma needs to evolve to meet the needs of this time, the skillful means that are needed right now.
And I could say, for over 30 years, we were asked to write this, tell this story, and we didn't know how to tell it. We didn't want it to be 10 tips from the Special Forces training program on how to do it cool. It's just like, we just didn't want to do that. And then COVID dropped. And we saw what was going on in the world, and we saw how lacking people were in the skills and the community and just how do we deal with, huge crises, not to mention what's going on in so many other domains as well. And it became really clear how relevant this story is in terms of what's being conveyed here and the invitation that's being offered to find this special kind of courage and seek out these kinds of skills. So we'd like to open it up. Yeah, let's open it up for some questions. And
You want to?
It's working again. No, is it? Is it working? Okay.
maybe before we do that, maybe just turn to somebody next to you, one or two people, and just in your own words, just see if you can give voice to what's the relevance of what we've been talking about for you in your field of operations, okay?
What speaks to you?
In your life, in your profession, in your family, in your community, what is there maybe just a glimpse of here that has meaning for you? Just take a couple minutes and do that. I think whatever, 2 questions for 5 minutes or so. Yeah. We could just give priority to this. Okay. Few questions.
Got it going.
Yeah. Zoomers, it's good to see friends here on the screen. I don't know if you can hear us, but deep bows to our friends there. Yeah. Hi, Patricia, Robert, Carolyn. Let's see who else is there. Oh, Andrew, hi. Glad you zoomed in. Yeah, hi, Carolyn. Yeah, thank you all for coming in. Really special to see you. Hey, Getty, Kalia, wonderful. Are you in? Okay, that's good. Thank you. Okay, just take a few minutes to wrap up. We'll come back, and take a few questions, and then do some book signing, okay? Thank you, partners. Huh? Yeah, do you want to do it or should I? Okay, all right. I'm sure this is a conversation that could go on all night, so go have a cup of tea with a friend afterwards. We would like to just honor the temporal envelope, but also stretch it a tiny bit, take a few questions, and then we'll sign some books. And if there's other questions, then yeah, over there.
Please.
Joel, you talk a lot about, can you hear me? How about this?
It's better.
You talk a lot about your involvement with the special forces. And I was wondering, Michelle, what did you do during this period of time?
I was there. I was the only woman in the program.
Wow.
Could have used a sister or two with me, but I was primarily I was teaching during the encampment and helping to run the encampment, the retreat, the meditation retreat, and the biofeedback lab, the neurofeedback program. I didn't do a lot of the swimming and at night and the hard trekking stuff that the guys did. I didn't carry like 100-pound pack that Joel was kind of meeting them in a lot of their mission simulation skills, but I did a lot of the inner work training.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, Michelle was really a strange attractor because she was a woman and she wasn't just another guy to compete with on the team, on our team.
Guys felt more comfortable actually speaking with me about what was their feelings, what was going on. They didn't feel as comfortable because they had to keep, felt like they had to keep that macho facade with the other guys, but they would come to me and talk about what's going on the inside and what the changes they were feeling. And so I was kind of a safe space for them to be authentic from their side.
I'm not sure. I have a question too.
Okay,
I don't think this is working, so maybe.
okay. All right.
Here's like 16 years. And he has a secret world, you know, he's got quiet. I noticed this is 12 years old. And he's got so quiet. You can see this would benefit him, but I'm not sure. It's hard to imagine him being open to something like this. Just seeing so many things and then so much.
Yeah.
It's amazing when you have to participate. I know this world really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That's special. Yeah. Anyway, our sister here said she has a son who's a Navy SEAL and has kind of retreated into a quiet, private world. And she wishes that there would be a way that he could experience a program like this and be able to bring a lot of those feelings out and learn some practices and skills that would benefit him.
I think we're paying a huge cost. I guess without a mic, we'll just call it out. We're paying a huge cost for not providing this kind of training. Yeah.
Not to the degree, not to the depth and the length, not the full, we had the guys full-time for 6 months. They pulled no other duty. They were ours, which was an amazing experiment. And there's been other programs, but shorter, nothing to that as holistic as our program was so far.
And then it was, I think, the bunker buster that kind of shattered the paradigm to open the way for literally millions of people in militaries in the US and the other countries to do some bit of this kind of training, be it mindfulness or biofeedback or whatever it was. But though a second program was approved, we were training trainers to then be able to carry this on. And they did to some degree, but they did approve a second program, but then our colonel went to the war college and another colonel came into the 10th group with the budget available to do it and said,
Then do my own thing.
my own thing is like, we're not going to meditate on my watch, kind of thing. So there wasn't another one. But I think, like there are international international conferences going on annually now exploring the vital role of mindfulness in the military. And, that mindfulness paradigm is kind of, a lot of things get hitched to that are in this category, but still most of the programs are like a light dusting rather than the full soaking immersion like we did. But it's all a step in the right direction. Let us pray and mobilize. Maybe one more question or comment for now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Call it out, brother. Aha, great.
Grateful that you talked about the biofeedback. I've been through biofeedback because of the depression, PTSD, and all that, and I'm grateful for that. And it's good to know that the program that you guys did, the pendulum is pretty much swinging the other way, and that's good to know. As far as technology is concerned, I was introduced to something called TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with that? And what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I'm not that familiar with the research in that realm. There are stimulation devices and entrainment devices that work with electromagnetic fields and with photic and auditory stimulation, and they can, shift the baseline in the brain for periods of time and at least give us some relief. Yeah, which is a blessing. I mean, the compassionate spirit manifests in many different ways. It's different than biofeedback, where you're learning how to make that shift yourself, and having the confidence that you can do that at any time without having to have the device have charged batteries or whatever, So I think those kinds of technologies are useful, and they could be augmented as well through the biofeedback training, where you learn how to grow your own and make those changes yourself, and then through the meditation training that teaches you to do it without a device. So it's just like mercy comes in many different forms. So yeah, yes.
Going on retreats. Comes together at some point.
And don't forget community.
Community.
Yeah. Yeah. How about this one word? Just pause, check in for a moment. Just see what's alive within you right now. Just one word, just call it out. Gratitude, compassion, hope, passion.
Inspiration is the last one. Did you say one? Someone up front here?
I did, but it was 2 words.
Okay, 2 words is all right.
Love warrior.
Since we listen, we do this even in corporate and military settings, honestly, let's dedicate. And what dedication is just sense that, some goodness we've touched some goodness here. We've touched some truth. We've touched some potential and some possibility. Imagine all the goodness that's alive within you, all the inspiration, all the sense of possibility, of open-heartedness, of open-mindedness, that we can breathe that in like waves of light, breathe in goodness within ourselves and amongst ourselves, breathe it in like waves of light that flow to our hearts, and that we can just bathe ourselves in this goodness, super saturate ourselves in this goodness, that we might be able to carry this light, this blessings, this inspiration with us forevermore. And as we gather this goodness and this light, that we can also share this. We can pour a little bit of our light into each other's hearts and minds and bodies and souls, that we can carry this with us as a charge for our battery, as a glow for our shining hearts as we leave the circle. And then envision that as we gather this goodness into our hearts, that we can pour some of this light, this love, this goodness, this inspiration into the hearts and minds and bodies of all beings everywhere, those near and far, those known and unknown, those close to us and those distant from us. That this can just flow from our hearts into their hearts and be received by each and every being, however they most need to receive at this time, to awaken to their true nature and to their highest potentials in an inexhaustible and ever-enduring kind of way. Deep bows, brothers and sisters. Special to share. Do you have anything you'd like to say with this as the service? Here.
Yeah, let's use that. Let's hear.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And I'll let you organize how in a moment you want to do the book signing. As Michelle and Joel pointed out, we actually are doing a lot of that here. So biofeedback's available. We're Middle Way Health, and we're doing Tai Chi here in yoga. We're doing somatic disciplines. We're doing expressions. We're singing. We're doing kirtan. But not everybody has the time to do all of those. And one thing that I notice as someone who's also presented workshops is that Michelle and Joel know how to put it together in a certain way that brings about a certain experience. So that's compact and that people can put in as a flow. So I'll be talking with them and see, you know, where they might fit into our schedule. They're very busy. They have a home also in Hawaii. So, you know, but once in a while they might come back to Sacramento. So let me see a show of hands of who might be interested in some kind of workshop. It's not going to be 6 months long, but something like that gives people a taste of how these various disciplines are integrated. So raise your hand. Hey, it's full already.
Definitely have a critical mass here.
So I'll turn it over to you. I don't know how you like to do the book signing, but it's,
Apologies, yeah, it's 7:30 now. We said we'd be done at 7:30, so we're done with this piece. We'll stick around, sign books. I'll also put out, we send out a daily inspirational email. I'll put out a pad here on the chair up kind of by the books. If you'd like to be on the list, just write clearly so we can get your email transcribed. We also do online meditations, and you're welcome to join us. A number of folks from our online sangha are here tonight. I'll also put out, I have a QR code for Venmo and for PayPal, if that's an easy way to pay for a book, or we can take cash, or if you need to pay with a credit card, I think Ellen can help out with that.
Yeah, and there are a few of you that bought books ahead of time through Eventbrite. Are some of you here that did that? I know Daniel did. Okay, I know there are a few of you, so your book's available. You can just take one. So you can book cash or use their QR code. We also have a way to take a payment here, and we'll get that to Joel and Michelle. And if you're not interested in a hard copy book, it will be available on Kindle. But I'll also invite you to consider the possibility of making a donation. There's a box in the back, or we have a device you can do that, and that will go to support this center, but also go to Michelle and Joel for the work they do. So we appreciate you coming tonight, and they're available to sign books. So thank you. Yeah, I think so. Just.
There's plenty of books for.
Thank you, everyone.
Interested in the book, they're right over here. I remember they.
And I hope you come back to acknowledge the activists. I'm like, ooh, I some things at the end, but.
Laid out. I mean, probably, and you while you're going. Yeah. I'm so real all the time. Yeah, there's so much experience. Yeah, there was so much.